I want this to be a conversation. I want it to be something that can lead to movement. And so for that reason, I'm simply just putting it all out there. My heart and my mind is open to how it's received. I think one thing that has always frustrated me is when I enter natural spaces and I pull up to wherever I want to hike or whatever area I want to explore. I think one of the most almost like disappointing and frustrating things is when I only see white faces and nobody looks like me. And for me, it's almost like discouraging, not in the sense that I'm not welcome, not in the sense that I chose the wrong location, but the fact that when I'm out here, I won't see anyone that looks like me. And I never really understood that. And one thing that's for sure is I don't think I could ever blame my community for that. This isn't me completely calling out my people, but I do recognize that there are a lot of societal barriers that have allowed this to happen. And so in no way is this observation trying to invalidate that very real struggle and invalidate a lot of tangible reasons as to why I don't see Black faces when I go out into nature. But I think one thing that isn't talked about enough, I feel like there's this sub-conversation in our community that almost reinforces the fact that we don't belong in these spaces, and being outside and hiking and being outdoors and adventuring is a white person thing and it's a white trait, and that's not something that Black people do. I encourage anyone who chooses to listen to this message, listens to it in its totality before commenting or voicing their own opinion. And I just ask that because I think if you were to stop what I'm saying at any point in this conversation, it may take a different light than intentioned. Sometimes in my thought processes, I circle back and I think I'm always constantly shifting my own perspective sometimes. And growing up, my family was very open to natural spaces, and they really made an effort to see my sister and I outdoors, camping and enjoying life and wildlife. And I honestly don't know if that was a reflection of who they were or a reflection of the community that we were in, because honestly, I grew up in the suburbs. As much as my family was not wealthy by any means, I had a very stable upbringing, and with that came a lot of unspoken access to a lot of things that I enjoy today, such as nature and such as being outside. And I guess all that I'm trying to say is that I wish I would see more of a shift in values, because as much as I still understand there's a lot of ground to be covered, I also want to acknowledge the process of regaining space that I feel like the Black community has done elegantly. And I would hope to see that with that, we're also reclaiming identities that we can adapt that ultimately feed into our wellness. I think our attention and our focus is constantly being drawn towards capitalistic motives and intentions. That's by no fault of our own. That's definitely due to the atmosphere and the country that we were forced into and placed in. I know for me, and the reason why I continue to pursue the outdoors is because of how freeing it feels to me and how connected and grounded I feel as I'm walking out here and experiencing life, and how much it puts my life into perspective, honestly. And I think we're all from nature. Nature has a lesson for us. It is a gift, and it's also important to give back to nature. The issue is not the generalized Black individual and how they were raised and what community they were raised within. The issue is the ideology and beliefs that go deeper and resurface in ways that almost bar our community. I believe this is one of the conversations where accountability is lacking. I think when it comes to culture, sometimes we have a tendency to allow ourselves to protect not only the good, but the bad tendencies of that culture and almost protect it regardless of its impact on generations, because culture is culture, and that's made out of both good and bad aspects. I think that's something you can't get away from. There's duality that lives within culture. And sometimes it's hard to have conversations that are open and enlightening when what's being talked about isn't something that's comfortable, and it would propose change and it would propose a shift in mindset. And I almost feel wrong for talking about this without also being able to provide tangible solutions, but I think this is something that has to come genuinely from the person. I think this aspect of life is independent and it's on the individual. I feel like even as I'm here recording this outside, I'm continually being struck by the endless potential and creativity that exists within nature and within a natural setting. I guess to conclude this conversation, I just want to say I look around at some of the most beautiful natural wildlife that I've seen so close to society, and on each perimeter I see these big beautiful houses, and I think we all know who those houses belong to, at least if we're speaking of majority. And I've looked at the faces of every person that has passed me on the trail, and most, if not all, have been white faces staring back at me. I think that's where the issue lies. I think these spaces in a lot of ways are held hostage by money and capitalism and the top percentage of people that can afford to live somewhere where they can go to their back porch and see a natural river and cranes and protected wildlife and natural spaces. And there's a huge disconnect. That's all I want to say. There's a huge disconnect, and I think the ways for that gap to close are very tangible, and it's just unfortunate that I don't feel connected to any type of spaces or communities that are really working to close that gap. And I know they're out there. I don't doubt it, and I have come across many. I've seen many on social media, but they're still all like little clouds in the vast sky of capitalism and whiteness, just little black clouds, and it's frustrating to see.